to tell his sons, a lord keeping secrets.
The witch hunt. Public figures and friends of Jason Ardy have called for a public inquiry into media coverage surrounding the former Cambridge professor before his death. And we covered him just a few days ago on the channel about all the plagiarism and about how he's like many millions of bloody lies all came out as lies. And the guy ended up committing suicide because of that. Now, I only made one video. I didn't speak about this at all before, so I'm just saying this isn't on me. I wasn't part of the giant media establishment who had him in, every single newspaper and every single article all over the place. I'm just saying that we can chat.
We've come down for a bit. I don't want to think about politics and stuff. We were interested though in Rogodon, I think. I think we'll stick on something about Rogodon. If you've heard, you need to check out Baldamore's Rogodon one. The longest second, I think it's called. Oh, it's fantastic. In fact, I could put that on. Yeah. That's a long one. And apparently you just found out that Rogodon is apparently in Trades in the Infinite's fucking... I don't know, is it new? Come on, see. Build them up. There we go, stick it on. And this says like the first part.
Welcome, gentle listener. I will apologize immediately to you, for I have been a liar of omission. You may have
I think that says.
You may have heard my passion when narrating the beginnings of the war, but I have kept you in the dark for your own protection. I have been keeping something from you, and I feel it is now time. There is a reason that Warhammer 40k is not just liked, or even obsessed over, but loved. Warhammer 40k is truly loved by its fans, for very good reason. A reason I am about to reveal to you in all its bittersweet glory. Premium is ad-free YouTube.
Fuck off adverts.
Altogether. One subscription. It is not a toy.
Honestly, this is why Baldamore's best. So this, like I said, broken into 3 sections. It's amazing.
It is not even the socialization and relaxation which I laud so very much. It is the escapism. It is in its depth. No other fictional universe I know of, not even that of the Star Wars saga, has such depth. It is encapsulated in one terrible moment and one single image. But you must understand it, to understand why it is so potent. What I call the longest second. It is contained within the story that I am about to tell you. But the moment I speak of is the defining instant that evokes such passion and loyalty in this world's adherents. It is why I consider the tale among the best and most heart-rending fiction in modern Western literature. It may never gain the acclaim it deserves, and I certainly will not be able to do it justice, but I will try. So, gentle listener,
you're heading down to HL 7004. Known as the Carnival in the local lingo.
And let us go to the darkest point in the universe. That which I call the longest second. Let us see why the Warhammer universe is so important to so many, why it stands the test of time. So, let us explore the existing lore of one of the greatest heroes, possibly the most tragic hero of the Warhammer universe, where this moment is contained. I introduce to you, gentle listener, the tale of the Primarch of the 7th Legion of the Legiones Astartes, to the Praetorian of Terra. Welcome to the tale of Rogodon.
Get out and do it right. May not look it, but you're in a Heretics
Now, let us begin our journey. I must give you the briefest of snapshots of history, which I will cover in further detail later, because it has such a colossal, overbearing import to the story I must relate today. Also, do bear in mind that this is merely an introduction to Robocop. To cover his history would simply not be consumable via this medium without a plethora of sittings. So be aware that I will revisit segments of this history in greater detail in the future, if it is requested. In a time of abject horror, a time when humanity was almost extinguished, a man arose to save us all. This individual was a man later known only as the Emperor of Mankind. For in the future, humanity had developed and bestrode the stars, forming a mighty confederation of planets far and wide. But as with all things, it was not to last. The means by which ships traversed the galaxy was called a warp drive, transporting into another adjacent universe known as the Material or ships could travel far distant stars in fractions of the time it would take them in the real world, the Materium. So the Human Federation colonized the stars. They developed these technologies. Technologies that would awe people of today, or for that matter, those of the later period of the 41st millennium. Humanity believed itself untouchable. Its robotic armies, the men of iron, were without number. Its fleet so advanced, none, not even the ancient race called the Elder, could match them without huge cost. Humanity was ascendant and felt its time had come. It felt invulnerable. But thus do all things begin, with hubris, with arrogance. A string of things happened over a very short period of time in the grand scheme of things. But do not worry, as I shall cover them all in more detail in my inimitable style at another juncture. But let us listen now, so we have context. The men of iron, and the very armies of humanity turned on their masters. Be novel, but the way in which this impacts is phenomenal and very distinct. But we shall get into the nuances another time. Just know that much of humanity died in that ages-long struggle, which they barely won, with the assistance of others, against their own automated army. And humanity was on its knees, still recovering from the holocaust that was the cybernetic revolt. Further disasters then struck. The war, which facilitated fast and light travel, became almost impossible. Huge warp storms closed off much of the galaxy and made travel effectively impossible. As the confederation of planets and humans had always relied so heavily on trade and cooperation, the effects were immediate and catastrophic. Entire worlds would previously be cities or industrialized, relied entirely on the produce of their neighbors. These planets' populations swiftly went into famine and into starvation. Rioting occurred across the galaxy, and human civilization was swept away. Planets that relied on the goods and equipment produced by their neighbors were similarly unable to survive. They regressed into feudal worlds where the rule of the sword might alone were eventually to regret their openness. For as the cycles emerged, their powers to tap into the warp started to attract evils that had never yet been encountered by humanity in the real world of Material. Cycles would succumb to the dark whispers of the denizens of the warp and be possessed. Denizens that the Imperium now called demons, and entire sectors would fall to their predictions. The demon is almost impossible to defeat without a fully trained and astonishingly experienced and powerful cycle on one side, where the kind of technology and weaponry that was fast disappearing due to the regression of huge swathes of human civilization
Kick off with over 1,500 matches this season on Sky Sports. Team comedy on the clocks and face off with epic dramas on Sky for just £35 a month. Believe in better.
It was not to be, as there were none to train these nascent cycles, none to protect them. The carnage and enslavement of these beings went unchecked for the most part, and again, the population of humanity shrank even more. Their freedom torn from them, and their lives reduced to that of cattle, chattel, or fodder, for the whims of their immortal, godlike masters, and sins alike. As humanity weakened, those races with which they had allied with to match the threat of the men of iron, their allies, turned on them. Perhaps this is a propaganda of the Emperor, but none live who can gainsay or refute his reading of plots that he alone survived. For the Emperor is immortal, and is lived for a very long time. Thus did humanity get assailed and enslaved or destroyed, also by their erstwhile allies. Crime, a pain, that the Emperor has never forgotten, and his sons have been reminded of ere ever they embarked on the campaigns of the Great Crusade. This period is named the Age of Strife. It was old night, and it deeply affected the entire subconscious of the human race, scarred it beyond recognition. For thousands of years, humanity was beaten, killed, enslaved, and corralled. We were almost stricken from history. It would have eventually been so, if it were not for the coming of the Emperor of mankind. On the birth planet of humanity, once called Earth, now called Terra, T-E-R-R-A, the Emperor, who had watched all the ages of mankind, arose. He threw off his lifelong rules and fetters that prevented him from ever revealing himself. Before, he had no need, but now, this eternal human, the most powerful of all, reckoned that there was simply no alternative. Terra itself had become a wasteland of fleeting techno-barbarian states with the technology to create biological and mechanical terrors. It was infested with evil psychos and immoral wizards, entire states that had fallen to control by Xenos, the imperialist type for aliens. All the populace of Terra could do was look on in horror. Their lives were effectively hell. There was nothing but darkness and evil, pain and tyranny, until the coming of the Emperor. Within a scant few hundred years, he had created his custodian guard and his thunder warriors, the precursors to his space marines, and took the fight out to the lands around him. He began the wars of unification. We will skip to the end of this period, as I will update you as time goes on, with the lore of that period as we can. But needless to say, the Emperor crushed all before him, and unified the humans of Earth with Terra, and destroyed any and all outside influences that had helped to bring humanity in low. But this was just the beginning. The Emperor prepared a great crusade, a great army to go forth from Terra, and with but one goal alone, the saving of humanity. With his genetically engineered warriors, the Adeptus Astartes, his space marines, he prepared to take back the galaxy in the name of peace and justice. As the solar system fell to his designs, the technological armies of Mars were added to his forces, for Mars had survived semi-intact the Age of Strife. Although a shadow of the power of the Human Confederation, the tech prince of Mars still commanded great power, and had fleets of warships and terrifying forces of Titans, colossal vehicles of war. With Mars on his side and his genetically engineered armies growing apace, the Emperor took off into the galaxy on a twofold mission. The first, as stated, to bring freedom, wisdom, and safety to the beleaguered humans spread across the stars. The second mission was, while moving ever onwards and outwards, to find the souls we had built. For there are 20 legions of superhuman warriors, the Astartes, that have been crafted and grown.
You don't love him. You don't actually love him. Sorry, but it's getting cruel. It's hard to watch. You don't love Carl, you love your Dyson, natural wonder, human energies.
But each was different due to their template being a different time. The planets, which I'll recover in detail soon, were 20 demigods. The 20 sons of the Emperor that he genetically designed, forged and prepared for his armies and his great crusade. They were made from his very own genetic stock, his image. But in a terrible moment before their birth, each was taken in their capsules and spread amongst the stars by the powers of chaos. The gods of chaos who hated the Emperor of mankind, naming him the Anathema, seemed terrified of the power the Emperor would have if he had his sons with him. But they were not able to destroy the planets for reason. So they found a chink in his armors, a hole in his walls, the Emperor's palace under the Himalayan mountains, and whisked away his sons, deposited them in worlds across the galaxy. Thus, as the crusade moved onward, it would, one by one, find the planets, the very sons of the Emperor. And mighty sons they were, each dwarfed a spaceman as much as a spaceman would a Martian, not just in size, but also in intellect, subtlety, skill, reflexes, wisdom, and power. Truly the planets were titans of old, and heroes alike that would put Perseus, Achilles, or even mighty Heretics to shame. And so it was that the capsule that contained the infant Rogan Bull landed on a planet called Inwit, an ice-world, hard place for humanity to even survive on. Locked in its orbit around the sun, one side of the world was ever shrouded in darkness, the other in light, but neither prosperous or easy. Inwit's sun was old and gave off little heat or light, so the planet was more akin to a ball of ice than what they would consider a planet for human habitation. The populace of Inwit was hardly stern, as they had no choice. Weakness was death. A harsh civilization that breaks stoic and rugged determination as a matter of course. Conflict against the Roman clans was common, and young warriors learned how to defend against their clan's enemies as early as they learned how to endure the death touch of Inwit's merciless chill. They were incredibly quick learners, and had an innate sense of an object's functional value, and most importantly, they have the strength and intelligence to conquer those who possess knowledge they do not. Long ago, for the coming of the Emperor was even a dream in night-shrouded terror. The people of Inwit began to create their own realm in the stars. On every world they took, they assimilated, realigned, and reinforced. With each conquest, their culture and learning grew, but Inwit itself remained unchanged, even as it became the center of a stellar empire. The ice highs and clan disputes remained, and while their world birthed starships and ringed its orbits with weapon stations, its rulers kept to the old ways, the ways that had created their strength. The warlords and matriarchs commanded armies amongst the stars, still living lives little easier than their vassals. It was as part of this burgeoning empire that Rogan grew to manhood, and then to rule its domains as emperor. Much of his early years remain unknown, or at least little talked about. It is, however, certain that in the cold and darkness of Inwit, a boy named Rogel by his adoptive kin rose to lead the House of Dawn, also known as the Ice Caste, and then to the rule of the Inwit cluster The patriarch of the clan that raised Dawn became an adopted grandfather to him and taught him much of tactics, strategy, and diplomacy. Even after he discovered he was not blood related to his wife, Dawn held his memory in high value. He kept a fur-edged robe that had belonged to the man. He slept with it on his bed every night. His qualities married perfectly with those of Inuit, and he pushed their empire further than any other. Rogel led and trained his armies and fashioned spacecraft the like of which had not been seen before. Rogel then discovered peace of mind. On his voyages of discovery, he first came across a relic of the past, a great and powerful weapon.
This wanted my orders to feel a little bit more branded and special, so I created this custom catnip stack with Vistaprint, and now I can brand everything. It is such a simple thing, but it makes my packages feel so much more personal and professional. I love knowing that every order now has a little catnip touch, and all my orders look extra cute. This stamp is actually self-inking, and I've picked a link to go with all my prints.
So in the Inuit system there was a vessel from the dark age of technology, a battleship of vast size which Dawn named the Phalanx. With this as his new capital ship and flag, he moved out and continued the work of his forebears in Inuit. He expanded the empire across the neighbouring systems at a frightening pace, hardy people of Inuit following wherever he led. Rogel's fleets then made contact with the outmost pathfinders and rogue traders at the vanguard of the Great Crusade. He was the seventh of the 20 primates to be discovered by his father, the Emperor of Mankind. The meeting was a joyous one, for Rogel recognized the greatness in the Emperor and his connection with him the moment they met. For the Emperor, the blessing and joy was magnified by the discovery of not only a son, but a thriving and powerful military culture as well. Rogel dawned for the mighty ship, the Phalanx, to his father, the Emperor. So loyal was he, so swiftly. But the Emperor gave it back to him to command and bade him to take command of the Astartes, the space units that had been made out of Rogel's own genetic stock. Effectively, Rogel's legendary sons. Dawn accepted. They had conditions. Dawn did not speak a single word to his legion when he first met Dawn. He is quiet and brooding, a demigod watching how they tried to please him. He insisted he watch them in combat. Watch them he did. When the battle was over, he finally broke his silence. Rogel Dawn informed them that they were warriors, but they had much to learn. So, in his inimitable way, Rogel forged his connection with his legion, the only way that could ever have happened, by example. Dawn trained his men, and his leadership and guidance complemented their existing skills and honed them to a razor's edge. The 7th Legion had merged with their Primarch more seamlessly than ever before, and became a thing of dread and wonder. For the reason why the Phalanx was so like their father, who built the service of his life.
Alas, I fear that common courtesy is an early casualty of war.
From there, the days of the Crusade began for us. The Imperial fists. The Crusade was a constant struggle, a constant war. But one Rogel was more than equipped for in every way. He started fighting alongside the Emperor, as all of the Primarchs did, bar only one. When he had been moulded, and the Emperor had decided it was time, Rogel was seconded to the forces of his oldest brother.
Yeah, I don't know how I've got the energy for
He was
this.
the first found by the Emperor, the longest serving at his side, the most trusted and trained by the Emperor. He was Horus Lupercal, the hammer of the Emperor, and later, his war master. Rogel finally serving alongside not only an equal for first time in his life, but one he considered worthy of his respect, perhaps a little of adoration. For to Rogel, Horus Lupercal was everything a Primarch and statesman, warrior and leader should be. Rogel and Horus were fast friends and foes. Once Horus himself stated that his legion could more wolves fighting before. the signs of war after home, with a finest insight, and if he met the Imperial fists at war, it would be an unending stalemate. The irresistible force versus the immovable object. So high Horace's opinion was his loyal and redoubtable brother Rogal. They fought side by side as brothers on many campaigns. They thought they would never be anything but the closest of friends. But Rogal was most often in the theatres of war led directly by the Emperor. Again, no, he like a shadow of amongst all mankind. Rogal also made bonds with other men over many campaigns thereafter, but he was not charismatic or outgoing. He could be known as blunt. So did not always fit in or have to be way to listen from friendship. Balor shared a special bond with was, of course, the one he only respected and loved. It was Sanguinius, or the Blood Angels. In Sanguinius he found the traits most exemplified the gold-blooded Muslim, the best in humanity, despite Sanguinius' obvious mutation, the weakness that he would with his back. Rogal and Sanguinius' affections owing to the gold of true camaraderie and respect.
You have been a long time from Armageddon, Sergeant.
Have
I? To be honest, the
He
cast ain't
war
half
to
no
end all wars.
Surely
It was his
you're
brother, the
part of
angel,
the
that
true
strove
military
forth when he
command
could
rather
not,
than
despite Rogal
whatever
wishing
this
with all
is.
his heart that he could go
You make
instead
me an offer,
and
Mark.
save the angel,
No.
just in case.